I had to raise about $800,000, and lo and behold, I became a congressman. Not just because of how much money I raised, but that's just part of the process. But one thing I wanted to share with all of you is, how many of you, let me ask you a question first, how many of you are in either going to be or involved in science, engineering, math, disciplines as your studies? Raise your hand.
They're all engineers.
Yes, well, I didn't want to assume, right? Why do you think I'm raising my hand? Because I did too. I was an electrical engineer, graduated from UC Santa Barbara, and very, thank you, very proud of that. I was a MAES member of our club on our campus, but also of SHIP. And we were one of the few organizations around the country that actually had a strong membership in both. So we didn't call ourselves MAES, we didn't call ourselves Ingenieros, SHIP, we called ourselves Ingenieros. And that was the name of our group at Santa Barbara. As a matter of fact, it still exists today. But one of the things that I wanted to share with all of you is that the wonderful thing about the discipline that you're involved in right now, it's going to prepare you very, very well to be a leader in whatever it is that you do. Because very few people on the planet have been challenged enough to actually work on a problem for pages and pages and pages and then come to one conclusion. The interesting thing about when we do that as engineers, especially when it comes to math, there's only one right answer. And most people can't stand that. Most people, when they say, you want me to take this problem and take it through all these paces, and I might be able to make a mistake somewhere along the way, and I got to start all over? No way, that's not for me. Where's the English class? Where's sociology? Where's political science? Psychology, or what have you? I'm kind of making fun of other disciplines because as engineers, that's what we do. But my point is, it has prepared me very, very, very well. Because I've had an interesting life so far. I went from being an engineer with Hewlett-Packard, and then they thought I had some personality, I guess, so they put me in their sales department, and then they hired me after I graduated, and then I got bored, and I left engineering altogether. And then I went back home to the barrio that I grew up in, and then I ended up getting an odd job or what have you, had some fun, I made enough money to buy a house, and as I was buying the house, I looked at the realtors and I said, this seems kind of interesting, maybe I could do that. I ended up getting my real estate license, fell in love with it, made a lot of money, ended up owning my own business, and then a friend of mine, a Chicano activist, a little bit older than me, he said, hey Tony, you got to run for the state assembly. Now mark my words, this is exactly what I told him. I laughed and I said, people like me don't run for office. And that was a very sad thing for me to say. Because what I meant was, people like me, brown people like me, don't run for office. Because at that time, there were no brown people like me in office in my community that I grew up in, that I was running a business in. That by that time I was married, raising the next generation of Cardenases. And I actually, at the age of 31, felt that I did not belong in politics. Well, thank God, James is more stubborn than me, and I'm pretty stubborn. So James kept bugging me for 6 months. Finally, he convinced me to run for office. So I did the right thing. I went home. I asked my wife, Norma, if I could run. She said yes. And then I got elected to the state legislature. Tough campaign. Got elected to the state legislature. And something interesting happened. Before I decided to run, I met another young man, 10 years younger than me. He had just graduated from MIT. Not electrical engineering. He got a mechanical engineering degree. His parents are from Mexico just like mine. He's a first generation college student just like me and my 10 brothers and sisters. And so what happened was, I didn't know anything about politics. He knew very little, and I said, hey, we're from the same neighborhood. If I run for office, will you run my campaign? He said yes. He didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know what he was doing. But I think one of the things that made the difference is that we're both engineers. We said, we've got an issue. It needs to be tackled. I'm not afraid to do that. Win, lose, or otherwise, let's do this, because it's the right thing to do. So I won my campaign. I became the first Latino elected to the state legislature to represent that community, even though that community was well over 70% Latino. We'd never had a person of color represent us. But since 1996, we have. And then Alex went on to be the council member with my support in that area for the city of Los Angeles. Big job. And then became the first Latino president of the LA City Council ever in the city's history. An engineer, the son of immigrants. He's about as dark as me, too. So what happens is, after that, he invites me to join the city council by creating a district that was tailor-made for me because he was the council president. And then, when I was termed out of the legislature, I ran for city council, and I won that seat, and then I ended up serving there for 10 years. And then, lo and behold, 10 years later, redistricting happens again. And I kid you not, I kept thinking that I was just going to back away and be done with politics and go back to being a businessman and making a lot of money. Well, I got sucked in again. So in January of this year, I became the first Latino, the first person of color in the entire history of the San Fernando Valley to get elected to Congress. And I'm right where I belong. Forget about making a lot of money. I'm hoping that I'm going to make a lot of dreams come true for a lot of people because I'm a congressman, because I'm a fighter, because I'm a problem solver, because I'm somebody that doesn't forget where he came from. I was hoping you could stop by my office, and if you ever want to stop by my office, whether I'm there or not, go into my congressional office and go look at the big, big, big painting that is on the wall. And there's two gentlemen. I say gentlemen, even though one of them didn't go to elementary school, my grandfather, and the other one only went to the first grade. There's a big picture of them. And they're standing there in a black and white picture that is now a painting. And they're bent over like this. And they have sacks of potatoes between their legs, and they have potatoes in their hands, and there's rows and rows of potatoes behind them. Potato sacks. And they're working. And somebody, for some reason, in 1940-something, had a camera and said, hey, Siriaco and Andres, why don't you pose for a picture? So in the middle of their work, they looked up and somebody took a picture. And that picture inspires me. Because look at what they went through. They didn't speak English. They were in a country where they were treated not very well. They were in a country where they worked 6 days a week for almost nothing. But why did they do that? Because they had a vision that something was better for somebody else, not for them. They didn't have health care benefits. They barely had running water where they lived. But they worked their tail off for someone else. And my mother, Maria, was at home, and eventually they had 11 children. And thank God they had 11, because if they had 10, you wouldn't be talking to me. I was the last one. So that picture inspires me, because sometimes I get a little lost, sometimes I forget where I came from, sometimes I forget about the sacrifices that I bet people made for you. Think about it. How many of your parents went to college? I'm not raising my hand. God bless you. You're very, very fortunate. You had examples in your own home of a generation that says, mijo, mija, you need to go to college. But my mother and father said, mijo, mija, you need to go to school. They didn't even know what college was. But we did. Doctorate degrees, master's degrees, engineers, teachers, psychologists, the sons and daughters of Andres and Maria Cardenas. Why were we able to do that? Because this is a great country. This is a phenomenal country. And yes, sometimes we're angry because we get treated very badly. Sometimes we get angry because somebody sees the color of our eyes or the color of our skin and they say, you can't cut it. You can't do it. That's what my math teacher told me when I got accepted to UC Santa Barbara. I said, I'm going to be an engineer. He said, you can't cut it. Don't even try it. Well, I made the Dean's Honors List. And when I showed him my grades, he didn't even remember who I was. So don't get angry. Just keep doing it. When you feel challenged, think about the person that went to work 2 jobs so that you could have food on the table. I bet you some of you have that in your home. I bet you most of you have parents who never had 1/10 the opportunities that you have today. And I bet you many of you have parents or grandparents who came from another country and they just dreamed of the opportunities that are just sitting there just for you. I never dreamed of being a U.S. Congressman. Just didn't. And that was my ignorance, that I didn't think I could. But I'm here to tell you that, no, the sky's not the limit. The sky's not the limit. Because Jose Hernandez, my buddy who graduated from UC Santa Barbara with me, is an astronaut. And he flew up in the sky for 13 days. So the sky's not the limit. This is your capital. Whether you were born here or not, this is your country. Accept that. Accept that. And with it comes responsibility. Or excuse me, responsibilities. Responsibilities to yourself to be the best you can be. Responsibilities to yourself and to your community and to your country to give back. Because we are very blessed and very fortunate in this country. I do apologize. I always like to take questions whenever I'm talking to people, especially younger people than me. But I think my ride is here. Yes. And I have to catch a plane. So I will take one question. And I apologize I have to leave, but you're always welcome to come back. You're always welcome to come visit me. And then also, you're always welcome to communicate with my office in case I'm in your town or nearby your university or what have you. I'll go talk to your group. I don't need to talk to voters. I don't worry about that. I want to talk to people who want to dialogue and people who want to talk about how we can make things better. So I'm more than happy to come and talk to your organization at a banquet or to your school, to your class or what have you. Anybody have a question? In Spanish or English? I don't know Russian. Hold on. Yeah, right here. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're working on a project, and it's actually about the STEM Job Act, and I was wondering what your thoughts, or if you had any thoughts or opinions on that.
We haven't done enough. We can't do enough. We could never do enough to improve our situation when it comes to STEM in this country. One of the reasons why our country is slipping every year when it comes to our economics, when it comes to our trade, when it comes to jobs in this country, I believe one of the biggest factors is the fact that we are not educating our American students, our American children, to continue with their math, to keep the door open for them to get into the STEM fields. It's really sad. And personally, I believe that we need to start before algebra, but the critical point is algebra. Too many American kids, especially too many minority kids, when they get to algebra, they drop out. They're like, no, that's too crazy, I can't do this. And all of a sudden, they're knocked out of the box. They're never gonna go into the STEM field because they're not prepared. So when it comes to the STEM Act, piece of cake, done. We need to do that. We need to do more. We need to engage private industry to do more, etc. We cannot do enough of what needs to be done, but we need to continue to try to improve because we're falling way, way behind. It's creativity, ladies and gentlemen, and you are the creators of products. You are the creators. Believe it or not, people might not call you artists, but you, in a way, you are the artists of industry. When you create, when you invent, jobs are created. I do apologize I have to go. Thank you so much for inviting me.